On May 5, 1961, Alan Shepard, aboard Freedom 7, becomes the first American in space. Shepard was one of the original Mercury 7 astronauts who were immortalized in the popular 1983 movie The Right Stuff, where he was portrayed by Scott Glenn. Shepard was in space on Freedom 7 for just 15 minutes before descending inside Earth's atmosphere. It was still a big moment for the U.S. space program. The Soviets had already achieved much more, including Yuri Gagarin orbiting the Earth a few weeks earlier. But Freedom 7 was at least a start. It's no coincidence that 20 days later, U.S. President John F. Kennedy announced to Congress his goal to land men on the moon before the end of the decade. Interestingly, hours-long delays in the launch of Freedom 7 resulted in Shepard needing desperately to urinate. His only real option was to go in his spacesuit, which he did. Apparently, the oxygen flowing through the spacesuit caused everything to dry out quickly, and the countdown resumed. Shepard continued in the space program after Freedom 7 and was slated to command the first manned Gemini mission. However, in 1963, he began suffering from severe, painful ear issues, which included loud clanging noises in his left ear, as well as episodes of dizziness and vertigo. Shepard's condition, eventually diagnosed as Meniere's disease, could be potentially fatal in spaceflight and caused him to be grounded. He was then named Chief of the Astronaut Office and played a major role in training NASA's astronauts in the Gemini and Apollo programs. An otologist in Los Angeles had developed a cure for Meniere's disease, and after a successful surgery, Shepard was restored to flight status in 1969. He was then slated to be the commander of the 1970 Apollo 13 mission, which was set to explore the Fra Mauro highlands. Early in the preparation stages, NASA management felt Shepard needed more time and training since he had not flown since Freedom 7 back in 1961. So Shepard and his crew were replaced by Jim Lovell's crew, who then miraculously returned safely to Earth after an explosion on board their Apollo 13 spacecraft. Shepard was able to command the 1971 Apollo 14 mission, with Command Module pilot Stuart Roosa and Lunar Module pilot Ed Mitchell on board. They fulfilled Apollo 13's mission of exploring the Fra Mauro highlands, with Shepard becoming the fifth human to walk on the moon. Shepard and Mitchell spent 9 hours 22 minutes walking on the moon's surface, longer than the 2 hours 36 minutes of Apollo 11 and the 7 hours 45 minutes of Apollo 12. Shepard famously hit 2 golf balls on the moon's surface during the mission. He did this without NASA sanction, smuggling the golf balls and a 6-iron head onto the spacecraft. Near the end of the astronauts' 9 hours exploring the moon's surface, Shepard turned to the camera and said, quote, "Houston, you might recognize what I have in my hand as the handle for the contingency sample return. It just so happens to have a genuine 6-iron on the bottom of it. In my left hand, I have a little white pellet that's familiar to millions of Americans. Unfortunately, the suit is so stiff I can't do this with 2 hands, but I'm going to try a little sand trap shot here." End quote. After 2 botched efforts, Shepard shanked a shot into a nearby crater. Apollo 13 astronaut Fred Hayes quipped from Mission Control, "That looked like a slice to me, Al." Shepard's next shot was struck much more cleanly. Shepard jubilantly remarked, "Miles and miles and miles," as the ball sailed out of his view. In 2022, a photography expert from England was able to use photos taken by the Apollo missions and the 2009 Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter to show that Shepard's first shot traveled 24 yards and his second only 40 yards, rather than miles and miles and miles. Not exactly up to PGA standards, but not bad while wearing a spacesuit and using a makeshift club and just one hand. Apollo 14 was Alan Shepard's final spaceflight. He died in 1998 at age 74. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1821, deposed French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte dies of stomach cancer in exile on St. Helena. In 1862, the Mexican army defeats the French in the Battle of Puebla, inspiring the Cinco de Mayo holiday. In 1877, Sioux leader Sitting Bull leaves his homeland in Montana and leads his people into Canada. In 1904, as a member of the Boston Americans, legendary pitcher Cy Young throws a perfect game. In 1955, the Allies end their post-World War II occupation of West Germany, which joins NATO the next day. In 1978, Ben & Jerry opened their first ice cream shop in a renovated gas station in Burlington, Vermont. In 2021, Peloton agrees to recall 125,000 treadmills after multiple injuries and the death of a 6-year-old. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. How long is the Channel Tunnel, or Channel, which connects England and France? 11 miles? 21 miles? 31 miles? Or 41 miles? Think you know the answer? Drop your guesses in the comments below. Find out if you're right next time on Today in History.